to introduce themselves, starting with Christina.
Hi everyone, my name's Christina O'Connor. I am head of EMEA sourcing at Amazon Web Services. I've been there about 3 years now. I've worked in various sourcing roles within my time there. I started as an agency recruiter. I don't know if there's any old school computer people here. No, maybe not. Started my life as an agency recruiter, then went to an RPO and then went in-house. A very typical, I think, recruiting career, moving from agency all the way to in-house. I'm super excited to share everything that we're doing around AI on the panel today.
Amazing.
Great. Hi, everyone. My name's Hung Lee. I still self-identify as a recruiter, even though I haven't sent a CV in anger for about 10 years or so. But I used to work in agency side 10 years, worked in-house, did a lot of the 0 to 50 type recruitment in tech around this part of the world. And these days, I see myself as an ecosystem support type person. So I write a newsletter, do podcasts, do events like this, and chat to everyone. So yeah, great to be here.
Great, thanks Hung. I'm Dan Gallagher. I'm the Global Inclusion and Diversity Talent Acquisition Lead at Avanade. I'm also our AI Disrupt Champion across HR and TA. So I'm heavily involved in working with our internal AI lab in terms of looking at how can we use AI to improve productivity, efficiency, and how do we go about implementing it into Avanade across HR and TA.
Amazing. So obviously you know about them now, but the main things that we want to know is how are they using AI in the hiring process. So I might start with you, Dan. How are you utilizing it at the moment? And by all means, please talk about some of the stuff that you're using, because I know a lot of people say, but what are you using?
So I think it's important to differentiate between the different types of AI. We've all been using AI in one form, which is machine learning and algorithms, but all the hype is on generative AI. So at Avanade, we've been working on we have built and delivered an internal job posting generator, which has saved hundreds of hours for recruiters each year. And that all we need to do is basically review what the output is from the generator, sense check it before posting it. And that's made huge savings for us. We've also built, a learning system, a learning tool, whereby we can create customized learning pathways based on the subject you want to learn about. So it's been really beneficial for our sales people, for example, who are going to a client meeting and they need to get up to speed really quickly on some important topics. They can input into the chat engine and they get content coming back at them that helps prepare them for pitches and presentations.
That sounds expensive.
It is, but I will say there's a very important foundation that went in place first, and that was building a good governance program, a good responsible AI program. And I spent so much time speaking with our legal team and our DPO team. So there's a lot of nervousness and pushback around using PI information in any AI solution. So when we look at how to use AI, we look at productivity and efficiency, which can be driven from something like Copilot. And then we look at systems and applications, which will be looking at maybe AI in screening, for example. We may look at AI chatbots. And I guess the difficulty is getting transparency from the vendors about where they're actually using AI in their process flow. A lot of them are plugging into LLMs that have been generated on so much data that they end up with bias within their algorithms, within hallucinations within their algorithms. So it becomes really important that you have the foundations in place to ensure that you're building, I guess, an inclusive approach to AI that is fair to everybody.
Amazing. Hung, thoughts?
Yeah, so I mean, my sort of angle on the adoption of AI is basically interacting with a lot of companies and collecting case studies from how they're doing things. So I'm actually writing a book on this. This is the first time I've told anybody. It's going to be 101
Exclusive.
case studies. 101 case studies on how to do recruitment optimization. So I think basically everyone has felt the pressure how to do more with less. All of us in the room, we've had that for 2 years. Next year is going to be the same. Okay, great. Let's have a look at companies that have actually succeeded in doing more with less. And how has AI played an impact on that? Not lots of ways in which it can do this, depending on the types of tools and types of technologies that you use. Just throw a few quick things out there. So people who follow me on LinkedIn know I've been banging on about interview intelligence a lot. This is basically software which records your interview, it transcribes it, and then produces sort of a data set that you can then analyze and apply AI to. And it turns out you can do a lot of productivity gains from using that. Not only is it going to free your recruiters off from having to do manual note taking, but it also does things like actually you can start understanding what the level of your interviewers' capabilities are over the entire suite of the business. So you can think about, okay, maybe I can use this as a training tool, or at least to identify where the training needs are, and can I increase the numbers of people in my business that I'm happy to put as interviewers in the organization. So if you think about it, everybody needs to think internally, like how many colleagues of yours are you happy to do and conduct interviews? It's probably about 10% of the employee population, maybe 15%, no more than that. That is a huge bottleneck as to how fast you can actually do recruitment, because it has to be piped into those 10% of people. How much faster would you get if you could increase that to 20% or 30%? It would be 100% increase of recruitment velocity. So it's an example of where applying AI on something that seems like a trivial thing, AI note-taking, might then translate into fundamentally significant productivity gains going through the roof. Anyway, the book's going to be out there. It's going to be $29.99.
What does your cut get though? Because Katrina told us she only gets 75p, so make sure that's in your contract. And you know what? I think that doing more for less is really important, because I think not all of us have really big budgets, and I think everybody's budgets are being squeezed even more. So I think maybe we could talk about later on, what are some of those things that people can do, that are those quick wins that can really help them on their TA journey. Christina.
So, echo a lot of what Dan has said. I think there's some clear, optimizations that you can build into your ATS that we're utilizing. We have a huge database, right? So, how can we utilize that database more efficiently with AI? We also then utilize it to match. We have a huge internal bench of talent within Amazon. And it's really also about making sure that internal bench can see all the different opportunities that are out there for them. We have numerous different business lines, and really we're very passionate about utilizing that internal bench of talent that we have. And then also around just creating efficiency, so around interview scheduling. Also, we have a bar raiser program, which is we always have one bar raiser on every single interview. We utilize A to make sure that we have enough availability for that. And I think also the really great thing about AWS is that we have the ability to create our own tools, right? So we have our own LLMs, that all the recruiters within Amazon have the ability to, okay, I want to create a tool for my business that can, will look at utilizing inclusive job descriptions, or I want to create a reporting tool. We have the ability to create our own tools that then we're then utilizing and then sharing on internal wikis. And then we also are having in the next couple of months AI hackathons for TA. So really I guess the onus is on the recruiting teams and the recruiters themselves to see where the gaps are and then create the tools that are going to make be able to do more with less.
Wow. And so what are some of the biggest challenges or obstacles that you face when implementing some of this?
So we talk a lot around responsible AI, and I think, back in 2018, Amazon did look at resume screening and built AI tools around that. And I think that we very quickly realized that there was bias built into that AI tool, because a lot of what we've been recruiting has been software development engineers, right? So the tool was then really kind of replicating. In the last 10 years, you've hired this type of person. So I think we've been very intentional around making sure that the tools that we're utilizing are being created by a diverse population, right? Which is why we're giving the tools to the recruiting, to our recruiting folks. And also, I think it's really important that that's one of the key challenges, is that we're not taking away human assessment, right? And I think I was having a conversation earlier around candidates are utilizing AI when they're going through interview processes. And I think one of the really important things that we're going to see is challenging, I guess, the authenticity of the candidate that you see in front of you. So that human assessment piece is even more important now as we come into kind of phase 2 of, the general population will be utilizing AI when it comes to application processes.
Amazing. And what about you, Dan? The challenges or lessons learned that you've done? Obviously, you're creating it. So is there anything that you want to impart your wisdom?
I guess it's partnering with your legal and DPO teams early on in the, vendor selection process if you're buying in AI solutions. I think if we had, and it's still problematic, we constantly have to have very long dialogue with our legal team so they fully understand the risk. So I guess that would be my first recommendation. I think it's to build like an AI use case prioritization framework and really plot out how do you want to use AI, where do you want to use AI over a 12, 24, 36 month period, and build business case investment requests on where you expect to use AI. So it could be, for example, on the front end, putting in an AI chatbot to help speed up the screening process, get more applicants top of funnel. It could be AI using on the interview stage where you have an AI tool that takes notes. So it's really just spending the time, maybe have somebody in your team who has an inclination towards innovation to sort of sit down and actually think about it strategically and look at what's out there in the marketplace, have a look at what content has been generated to get an appreciation of what's possible, because there's so much out there. There are lots of vendors at the moment using AI as a tool to get in front of us. So we can think carefully about how we're going to implement and build a tech stack with AI.
Amazing. And bringing it to the future of AI, Hung, where do you see it being beneficial and where do you see it potentially being detrimental?
That's a very political question,
Absolutely.
Nerida. So the potential, if you look at it from a business perspective, so in the mindset of the CEO, and by the way, there's no greater enthusiast within the business for AI than the CEO, right? And the reason why is because obviously they can see the massive potential for productivity gains, revenue gains, and profit gains by using artificial intelligence to massively increase productivity. That doesn't necessarily mean great things for the people working in that business, because often the biggest cost to any business is almost always payroll. So a lot of the job cuts we're seeing, a lot of the suppression in hiring, the sort of careful headcount growth. I think a big part of that reason, unstated reason, is because C-level are looking at it and thinking, I'm not sure what the right size for this department is going to be in 6 months' time, 12 months' time, because actually no one knows what the right size is, because we don't know what the innovation rate is going to be in that time frame and whether we can actually potentially replace a lot of those functions. So from a business point of view, CEO point of view, AI is amazing. There's almost like zero problems with it. But anybody who isn't a CEO, we need to think carefully about, who gains from the distribution of technology of this type? It's certainly not going to be equitable if we just let it happen. We actually have to be very, very conscious as to who shares the productivity gains from the AI that's happening. Like, where does the time come from? For instance, AI may save the business 200 hours a week, right? 2,000 hours. Fantastic. What does that convert into? Does it convert into better experience for our customers? Does it convert into better experience for our candidates? Or does it convert into more profit for the bottom line, for the CFO and for the CEO? That is a political conversation we need to have. It's not something, if we just sit there and think it's going to all be roses and rings, it will all go to profit. In the same way, when you think about how the previous era of transformatory change hit the business world, this is the era of the internet. Some of us are old enough to remember pre-internet. Hands up, in fact, who was there pre-internet? Old lags. How old is this conference? Oh my God. All right.
Excel spreadsheets.
So the internet, when it first arrived, was basically telling us, hey, it's going to just change our lives. It's going to save us so much time. Guess what? We're busier than ever before.
Yeah.
Where the fuck has the time gone? Tell you what, the time has gone to the company's bottom line. We've just accepted doing more work, right? So what I'm saying to you is that if we're gonna save time by deploying AI, what we need to do is claim some of that time back to improve the quality of service, not just accept quantity sort of increase. That's what we have to do. We have to be politically conscious, folks.
Amazing. Dan, Christina, any thoughts to add to that wonderful?
I think it's a great point, right? But I think if you look, and I'm gonna throw some numbers, and I think they're correct, but I think that the AI as, you know, an industry is going to be worth 8 billion, right, in the next 10 years to the UK economy. So I think it's all about being savvy around, okay, if we're going to get some productivity gains here, what else can I be doing with my time? How can I become AI literate? What tools can I be creating? And really just looking, you know, we talk a lot around skills-based hiring, right? You're putting me off. But that's skills-based hiring. So I think it's all around thinking, okay, if there is a gap, or I need to become more AI literate, or I want to create my own tool, how do I do that? Or how do I make my own role more efficient? How do I do more with less by utilizing AI tools? So I think that there is. And if we go back to when, you know, before the internet, right, I think there was the same kind of feeling of, okay, there was kind of that feeling of uncertainty around it, but it's created a huge amount of jobs and roles and different industries. So I think that actually we'll look back on this time in a similar fashion, and, you know, we'll see that it's going to create a huge amount of opportunity.
I'm going to come in. Can I come in quickly?
Yeah, go for it.
So I have a slightly different opinion. I think that CEOs and C-suite are expecting AI to produce a lot of efficiency gains and productivity gains, and I don't think we're quite there yet. I think there's so much further to go before we see fundamental changes in business operating procedure. I think at the moment, Copilot, if anybody, hands up, who has Copilot? Okay, do you find it very useful, sort of useful? Yeah, exactly, it's sort of useful. It's a bit of a gimmick at the moment because you can go in and you can do nice presentations, but really it's not a killer app in the same way that the iPhone was. If you think about Open Chat GPT, they're looking to raise $150 billion. They're getting discounted by Microsoft. Like, their server costs are about 10 billion, 12 billion a year. And they're discounting their fees to all the startups that are using their LLMs. So at some point there's going to be a cost that's going to come in that's going to make it very expensive to do business with vendors that are using AI because of the overheads that OpenAI and all the other LLMs that have incurred. So I think it's go slow, put the process and foundations in place. I think, yes, over time it'll definitely become a bigger play, but I'm not expecting anything drastic to change in the next 12 months.
Amazing. I've had to stand up because I literally couldn't see the questions. Christina, don't look. No, because this first one is for you. And look, you probably anticipated that it may come your way, but it's from John. So there seems to be a big shift towards coming back to the office 4 to 5 days a week from the likes of Amazon and Boots. What are your thoughts on this, particularly for flexibility with childcare? Thanks, John.
Very interesting question. So I think, you know, Amazon has 1.5 million employees, right? And they're in a unique position where they feel like that in-office culture is really, really important to us collaborating, and also to, you know, for not just building relationships within teams, but building relationships within lots of different teams, right? And I think that there's, you know, we're actually in a unique position here in the UK as well, right? Where we ultimately get flexibility whether Amazon mandate it or not, right? So I think you can have the best of both worlds, which is great. I think there's flexibility that those 5 days a week, right? There's going to be flexibility within that. I think that we have you have a really diverse workforce as well. So you have to have flexibility, right? Of course, like, you know, I would say, I'm not going to put a percentage on it, but, you know, lots of people have like young children, they care for elderly parents. All of that is something that's still absolutely available. Yeah.
Yeah, and ultimately, you know, they're not holding people down to work for Amazon either. You know, it's people's choices whether they stay. If it doesn't suit your personal lifestyle, then it doesn't suit. It is what it is. So not technically an AI question, but I couldn't just avoid it, so apologies. So this one's obviously for Hung. This is a great question, Hung. So are there any particular interview intelligence apps or programs that you can suggest that transcribes the interview notes so that they don't physically have to?
Yeah, but they all pay me a bit of money, so basically
That's okay.
I'm
share.
biased. I'm biased, okay? Listen, I think these tools are they just work. It's to your flavor as to what you prefer. I think the technology is almost a proven case now. So if you want to just rattle off a few options, you can have MetaView, probably the leading player in the UK. BrightHire is probably the leading player in the US. ScreenLoop are actually here today. Go and see them. Equitas are a product that are well worth looking at. Pillar, another product we're looking at.
Amazing.
There's loads of them. There's
Yeah.
literally loads of them.
And I think it helps just having, just an insight as well, because there are so many. It can become a minefield. So do your research, have a look and see what suits you and your business. Next question. One of the most common free tools is ChatGPT, as many firms do not have budgets for those paid tools, which is what I referred to before around really small budgets. How can TA team use ChatGPT or any other free AI platforms for TA purposes? Dan?
A quick one off the top of my head is to create diversity Boolean search strings with a diversity lens. So if you're working in global business and let's say you've got roles in Japan, for example, I don't really understand Japan. So I could go into ChatGPT and ask for the top 100 female names in Japan and the top 10 STEM colleges in Japan. And that will automatically give me the Boolean search string, and I can bind it and plug it into LinkedIn, and I've got a huge project straight away. So what used to take me 2 days to build like a really complex Boolean search string for diversity purposes, I can do now in 10 minutes. And that's a huge time-saving benefit.
Amazing. And these next two questions are actually pretty much the same, but essentially candidates are using AI. We know that. We see it, especially in the graduate assessment programs when they copy and paste the same words. Don't even take out the apostrophes. What can we do to combat this? Obviously, ChatGPT is used a lot, but how do you combat that with the same wording? Christina?
So I think that there needs to be kind of an acceptance, right? That candidates are going to use AI more and more. So, and I think, online assessments, I think there's software out there where you can see if a candidate is utilized, if they're looking left, right, if they're looking at the PC behind them. And that's something that we utilize in some of our certifications. But I think it's also about, once again, it makes TA so important, because you can't take away that assessment from TA, because we have to make sure that those interviews are happening either virtually or in person, to make sure that, and you're asking those really, I guess, competency-based questions to understand, okay, does the application match what I see in front of me, right? So I think that there will be, and I think some of the role of, the role of TA, right, is going to move into more of a looking out for, being able to spot when a candidate is real or not, right? I think that's going to start becoming really important in our roles, and we'll utilize probably AI to do that, right? So I think that there has to be an acceptance, right? That, especially with our graduate population, that there's going to be more use of AI, and you've got to meet that population where they're at, and then also look at, that human assessment piece, making, it becomes more and more important within the interview process.
I've got a question for Hong. Do you know of any tools, Hong, that analyze responses to questions for AI responses? So, for example, in a real-world situation, if I'm interviewing somebody and I think they're using AI, my next question I will input into ChatGPT. And if they respond word for word or very similar to what I see on my screen, I know they're using AI. So is there a tool that sort of would automatically flag a response as being generated by AI?
If there are tools that are not widely used, and there's a couple of reasons why that is, simply because it's a bit of a legal minefield to deploy that technique. So the idea that you can kind of detect is as a strategy to try and how do you deal with AI-enabled candidates? Or I'm going to try and detect who they are and then like eliminate them. That makes them their application invalid. You're basically one mistake away from a lawsuit that's going to stop you from using that tool. So I think it's a dead end as a technique, even though there are tools that try and tell you they're going to do that. A much better way, I think, is very similar to what you said, Christine. You got to accept this is the reality. People are going to use this technology. Can you guide the usage? Can you sort of design an application flow which anticipates that they will use it, and perhaps can you even test for their capabilities of using it? Because at the end of the day, all companies should be very sensitive to hiring AI-enabled candidates. So can we turn this into a threat situation into an opportunity? So I think what we've got to do as recruiters is really think quite creatively and understand, okay, how can we actually find the best candidates that also happen to be the best candidates using AI? And bring that into and design a recruitment flow that does that, then we're going to solve that problem in a totally different way.
So I'm going to put my I&D hat on here and say there's an inclusivity issue here, because you're going to have people who can afford to pay for the paid ChatGPT versus those who don't. So then is it upon the TA teams and recruiters to provide AI solutions as part of the interview process to make it a level playing field for everybody?
That's exactly what I think the design part would mean. It would basically say, hey guys, here's the applicant, this is how we assess. Here are the tools we want you to use in order to complete your application, then provide them with the AI tools that that they would otherwise be using. And I think that'd be probably the best way to try and do it.
Amazing. I think we have 2 more questions. So what recruitment area do you think has the greatest potential for new AI-based solutions in the short and long term?
I've got a strong opinion on this.
Go
Go
for
for
it.
it.
I'm very, very bullish on AI voice pre-screening. I think in 2025, that will become the next big technology category. I think the horror of us thinking, oh my God, candidates speaking to artificial intelligence, they're not going to want that. That's going to disappear in the same way it did in interview intelligence. They're going to embrace it, and then suddenly we're going to realize, oh, we don't need to do pre-screening anymore. So AI voice, I think, is going to be the next big thing.
Wow, you heard it here first. Dan, Christina, anything?
I think there's a lot of work to be done around candidate experience.
Yeah,
And I don't have kind of the solve on what that AI tool looks like, but I think that, there's a lot of prevalence around, candidates don't have a fantastic experience. They, they don't get feedback. There's no kind of like tracking through on their application. So I think that there's more that can be done around that candidate journey, and then utilizing AI to really make it a positive candidate journey, and then also making sure that there's that human interaction within that too.
Amazing. And then last final question from all of you. What is one piece of advice you'd give to the audience today when they're thinking about either implementing AI or they're utilizing AI as part of their role? Christina? Yep.
I think it's all around making sure that TA is in the center of everything that you're doing, right? That human assessment piece is extremely important, right? I think it's all about helping your recruiters or your recruiting function do more with less, but also giving them, taking the mundane kind of parts of their role away from them and letting them spend more time with their customer and their candidate, having those face-to-face or virtual interactions. I think the role of TAs is critical to how we hire, and making sure that that's in the heart of everything you do, but also utilizing AI to make them have more time with customers.
Amazing. Hung?
I will say that recruiters and recruitment leaders particularly need to kind of learn how to do it themselves. It's very, very important that we break through this. I've read about this, it does that. You got to get into daily usage yourself and break through that barrier. And the reason why is because, especially people who are recruitment leaders here, like you're going to be making decisions on usage, you're going to be making decisions on policy, and it would be a terrible thing for you to do that without you having a visceral understanding as to what the heck this technology is. Again, I'm reminded of the pre-internet days. I love aging myself on stage. But I remember going into companies that were making internet policy, and the geezer who was making the policy didn't even have an email address. How is it possible that that person has the responsibility to make that decision? Who can use the internet, how and when the person making the decision wasn't intimately fluent with it himself or herself? That's our situation today. So we've got to carve out time in our day, every day, carve out 30 minutes and say, I'm going to learn something about AI I didn't know before, and put it in your diary, block book it. You got to learn it, especially if you're a recruitment leader.
For me, it comes back to having a responsible AI approach. And I think integrated in that is how do you reskill and retrain the recruiters that are directly impacted by the efficiency and productivity gains that are seen as a result of using AI. For example, can you retrain them to be very strong, I guess, recruiter business partners where their focus is actually on the candidate management side? Because I know in an organization that hires 3,000 to 5,000 people, we probably don't spend enough time with our candidates. So yeah, responsible AI, put that as your foundation and go from there.
Amazing. I have one more question because I feel like this question I just need to ask you, Hung. Shifting gears from being a recruiter to a recruiting industry podcaster, given the current climate of recruitment, unemployment, what can we do and how can recruiters transition into a different industry, like prompt engineering, to start their own business?
That's a really interesting question, and I'm a person that basically has had a very weird sort of journey to where I am now. So it's not something I would necessarily recommend, because you're gonna have to come close to bankruptcy a couple of times. I wouldn't recommend that to anybody. However, I think it is very important. One thing I've learned through that journey is that recruiters inherently have a lot of entrepreneurial spirits. We have a lot of resilience. If you've been doing this job sort of more than 12 months, like you already have those qualities, so you got to have confidence. One thing I would say is that we could all benefit from is understand that your personal profile is a hugely significant component for you to be a successful independent operator in any context. Personal branding has kind of completely lost favor over the last couple of years. But I think in the AI world, it's going to be rehabilitated. I'll be talking about this a little bit in my talk at 2:30. And of course, you've got Amelia Sordell, who's an absolute doyen at this. So make sure you go and check her talk out as well. But we are going to bring back personal branding. The reason why is because AI world is soon going to dominate the communications that people consume. And one thing very interesting about AI is that it's just generally quite vanilla communication. Because it's always going to lean to the mean. It's going to go towards the average. It's not going to do the weird things that human beings can do. So I think that gives us an opportunity. I think we need to think about that. We need to be a little bit braver. We need to be out there a bit more. We need to come to events like this very regularly and make sure that you're interacting with everyone and building your network and building your profile. I think those two things are critical for any business success today.
Amazing. Round of applause for our fabulous panel, everybody.